Danny Wright walked through the corridors of the Galactic Council station, his hands trembling slightly inside his pockets. At 19 years old, he knew he looked even younger. His reflection in the polished metal wall showed a kid in an oversized diplomatic suit, not a representative of Earth. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ambassador Holt and 3 other senior diplomats had fallen sick 2 days before the council meeting. Some kind of alien virus they picked up at a reception. Danny was just an intern, someone who carried files and took notes. Now he carried the voice of humanity. The council chamber doors towered above him easily 30 feet high. They were designed to impress, to make visitors feel small. Danny took a deep breath and walked through as they slid open with a hiss. The chamber was massive, arranged in a circular pattern with seats rising in tiers. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of species filled those seats. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Danny's brain struggled to process what he saw. There were beings made of crystalline structures, creatures that floated in containment fields filled with gas, and things that defied easy description. High Chancellor Krell perched on the central elevated platform. He belonged to an avian species covered in brilliant blue and gold feathers. His eyes were sharp and intelligent, but they held a cold amusement as Danny approached the speaking platform reserved for Earth's representative. The platform was adjustable, meant to accommodate different species. For Danny, it barely came up to his waist. He had to stand on his toes to reach the microphone properly. A ripple of sound moved through the chamber. It took Danny a moment to realize it was laughter. Not friendly laughter, but the kind that came at someone's expense. His face burned red, but he forced himself to focus. Earth needed protected trade routes. Human colony ships kept getting harassed by pirates operating in council-controlled space. The council did nothing because humanity was new, weak, barely worth noticing. The council recognizes Earth, Krell announced, his voice carrying a musical quality that the translation device in Danny's ear rendered as mildly condescending.
How delightful.
They've sent us a child, more laughter. Danny cleared his throat and began his prepared statement. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Earth respectfully requests, "Speak up, little one," someone called from the upper tiers. Danny recognized the voice from his briefing files. War Chief Brone, leader of the Draxian species. They were large, reptilian, and controlled significant military forces. "We can barely hear your squeaking." The laughter grew louder. Danny raised his voice, feeling his cheeks burn hotter. "Earth respectfully requests assistance in protecting our colony ships. In the past 3 months, we've lost contact with 2 vessels. Pirates attack our ships because they know we have no protection in council space. We ask for patrol routes to be established." "Pirates?" Scholar Miv interrupted, the insectoid being leaned forward in its seat, compound eyes glittering. "Perhaps these pirates simply don't recognize human ships as worth avoiding. Your technology is so primitive. Maybe they think you're debris." The chamber erupted in genuine amusement now. Even some of the species Danny thought might be sympathetic joined in. He gripped the edge of the platform, his prepared speech crumbling in his mind. Ambassador Holt had written beautiful diplomatic language, carefully worded requests that acknowledged human limitations while asking for basic protection. But looking at these aliens, seeing the complete dismissal in their eyes, Danny realized the truth. They would never take humans seriously. "We're not debris," Danny said quietly. "We're people." The colony ship New Dawn has 4,000 civilians aboard, including children. They're heading to establish a settlement on Kepler 186F. The route goes through council space. We just want safe passage. Krell ruffled his feathers, a gesture Danny's cultural briefing identified as dismissal. The council has more important matters than babysitting primitive species on their little journeys. Earth joined our community 5 years ago. In that time, what have you contributed? Your technology is centuries behind most member species. Your military is non-existent. Your culture is barely space-capable. You are guests here, tolerated because the council believes in giving all species opportunity. But you must understand your place. Our place? Danny felt anger rising, pushing past his nervousness. What place is that exactly? War Chief Brone stood up, his massive form dominating his section of the chamber. Your place is to be grateful we allow you here at all, human child. Your species has nothing we need. You offer nothing we want. You are amusing pets at best. He turned to address the full council. Perhaps we should test this young one's resolve. I propose we conduct aggressive inspections of human vessels entering council space. Thorough inspections. If humans cannot defend their ships, perhaps they should not fly them. Several council members voiced approval. Danny's heart sank as he realized what was happening. This wasn't just dismissal anymore. This was turning into active hostility. That would be an act of aggression against Earth vessels, he protested. Under council law protects member species, Krell interrupted smoothly. But it also allows for security measures. If your ships appear suspicious, if they fail to comply with inspection protocols, if they resist in any way, then consequences follow. That is not aggression. That is security. He looked directly at Danny with those sharp eyes. Do you understand, little monkey? The chamber fell silent. Danny knew enough about galactic politics to understand the insult. Krell had deliberately used a slur, comparing humans to primitive animals from Earth's own ecosystem. The High Chancellor reached out with one wing arm and patted Danny's head like he was a pet. You're adorable when you're upset. But this is not a matter for children. The Council has spoken. Human ships will submit to enhanced inspections. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. You can't do this, Danny said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself. We'll appeal to the neutral arbitrators. You'll do nothing, Brone said flatly. Because you can do nothing. Go home, human child. Tell your elders to teach their young proper manners before sending them to address their betters. The vote was called. It took less than 5 minutes. Enhanced inspection protocols for human vessels passed with overwhelming support. Only 3 species abstained. None voted against. Danny stood at his little platform, watching his first diplomatic mission crumble into complete failure. Worse than failure. Active threat. As the council moved to other business, Danny gathered his materials and left the chamber. His hands weren't trembling anymore. They were steady, clenched into fists at his sides. In his pocket, his communication device buzzed. A message from Ambassador Holt. How did it go? Danny didn't answer. He had a different call to make. One to Director Lang at Earth Intelligence, because those enhanced inspections were about to turn deadly, and everyone in that chamber knew it except him. The council had made a mistake today. They just didn't know it yet. 3 days after the council meeting, War Chief Brone smiled as his fleet surrounded the human colony ship New Dawn. The vessel was enormous by human standards, nearly 2 kilometers long, but it moved slowly and had minimal defensive capabilities. His scanners showed 4,000 life signs aboard. Families, scientists, farmers hoping to start fresh on some distant world. They were helpless, and Brone enjoyed that fact immensely. Attention, human vessel, he broadcast from his flagship. This is War Chief Brone of the Draxian Defense Fleet. You are ordered to power down engines and prepare for aggressive inspection as authorized by Council Resolution 7745. Any resistance will result in immediate seizure of your vessel. The response came after a long pause, a woman's voice trying to sound calm but failing. This is Captain Reed of the New Dawn. We are a civilian vessel on a registered colony mission. We have complied with all council regulations. There is no cause for inspection. The council determines cause, Brone replied. You have 30 minutes to comply or we will board by force. He cut the transmission and turned to his second officer. Deploy boarding teams. Make sure they understand to be thorough. Very thorough. I want these humans to learn fear. His second officer hesitated. War Chief, these are civilians. The council authorized inspections, not harassment. Brone's eyes narrowed dangerously. The council authorized me to ensure compliance through any means necessary. Are you questioning my interpretation of council law? No, War Chief. Good. Begin the operation. In the council station, High Chancellor Krell received the report with satisfaction. The humans needed to learn their place. This inspection would be the first of many. Soon, Earth would realize that sending colony ships through council space required paying proper tribute to the dominant powers. The humans had technology worth taking even if it was primitive. Their biological materials were unique. Their cultural artifacts had novelty value. One way or another, Krell intended to profit from humanity's weakness. Scholar Miv entered Krell's private chamber without announcement. The insectoid's compound eyes reflected concern. High Chancellor, I've been analyzing the human response to our council session. Something troubles me. The only thing that should trouble you is whether these upstart primates learn proper respect. Krell replied, preening his feathers. War Chief Brone is teaching them now. That's what concerns me, Miv said carefully. The young human, Danny Wright, sent a message before leaving our station. It was brief, just 3 words. They've been running through my mind since I decoded them. What 3 words could possibly matter from that child? He said, "We warned you." Krell laughed, a melodious sound. Empty bravado from a humiliated boy. Ignore it, but Miv couldn't ignore it. Something about the way Danny had looked when leaving the chamber. The steadiness in his young eyes despite his obvious anger. The insectoid pulled up Earth's historical files, diving deep into the information humanity had provided when joining the Council. Most species glossed over these files. Earth was too new, too primitive to warrant serious study. But Miv read carefully now, looking for something specific. What the scholar found made every one of its limbs go rigid with alarm. Aboard the New Dawn, Captain Reed made the hardest decision of her life. She opened a channel to Earth, broadcasting on emergency frequencies. This is Captain Reed. We are being boarded by hostile forces. 4,000 civilians at risk, requesting immediate assistance. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The message reached Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva within seconds. Director Lang had been waiting for exactly this call since receiving Danny's coded message 3 days ago. The young diplomat had been right. The Council wasn't just dismissing humanity. They were actively preparing to prey on human weakness. Lang picked up the red phone, the direct line to President Ochoa. It's happening, Lang said simply. Are you certain? President Ochoa asked. 4,000 civilians are being boarded right now. War Chief Brone's fleet has them surrounded. This is the test case. If we do nothing, every human ship becomes a target. There was silence on the line. Lang knew what the president was weighing. For 5 years, Earth had played weak. They had hidden their true capabilities, appearing as the primitive newcomers everyone believed them to be. It was a strategy borrowed from human history, from countless examples of underdogs who survived by being underestimated. But that strategy only worked if you eventually revealed your teeth. Authorization code Tango Romeo Uniform 7, President Ochoa said quietly. Execute Operation Honey Badger. Lang felt a chill run down his spine. Confirming Tango Romeo Uniform 7, Operation Honey Badger is active. God help us all. Within minutes, encrypted signals burst across Earth's hidden military network. Bases that didn't officially exist began powering up systems that were supposedly decades away from completion. Admiral Grace Foster received her orders in her quarters aboard the dreadnought Defiant, flagship of Earth's first fleet, a fleet that no alien species knew existed. Foster was 60 years old, gray-haired, and had spent 40 of those years in military service. She had fought in Earth's last major war, had seen what humans could do when truly threatened. She had spent the last 5 years preparing for this exact moment. Training crews in secret facilities on the dark side of Luna, building weapons that broke every treaty Earth had supposedly agreed to. She walked onto the Defiance bridge. Her crew snapped to attention. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. We have 4,000 civilians under threat. Every ship in First Fleet is to prepare for immediate combat deployment. Target coordinates are being transmitted now. We jump in 30 minutes. Her tactical officer spoke up, his voice uncertain. Admiral, we're outnumbered. Intelligence shows War Chief Brone has 20 capital ships in his fleet. We have 12. Foster smiled coldly. Numbers mean nothing if your enemy thinks you're prey. They're about to learn that humans aren't prey. We're persistence predators, and we've been preparing for this hunt for 5 very long years. She turned to her communications officer. Send a message to War Chief Brone, text only. Make sure every ship in his fleet receives it. What should it say, Admiral? Keep it simple. Return our people. You have 6 hours. That's all. The message reached Brone's flagship as his boarding teams were cutting through the New Dawn's hull. He read it and laughed so hard his translator struggled to keep up. 6 hours? An ultimatum from humans? He forwarded the message to High Chancellor Krell with a mocking comment. The monkeys think they can threaten us. Should I be frightened? Krell's response was immediate. Ignore them. Complete your inspection. Show these primitives what happens when they challenge their betters. But Scholar Miv saw the message too, and the scholar's research had revealed something terrifying. Earth's history was filled with wars. Not small conflicts, but global devastations. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself multiple times. Their weapon development had been constrained by treaties only because they had learned how easily they could annihilate themselves. And those treaties, Miv now realized, were bilateral agreements between human nations, not agreements with alien species. The scholar tried calling Krell again. The High Chancellor refused the call. Miv sent an urgent message to the full council. It was ignored. Everyone was too busy celebrating humanity's humiliation to listen to one paranoid insectoid's concerns. 5 hours and 30 minutes after the message was sent, Admiral Foster's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Dawn star system. 12 human warships, each one bristling with weapons that galactic civilization hadn't seen in 1,000 years. Nuclear weapons, kinetic kill vehicles, electromagnetic pulse weapons, chemical warfare systems, cyber warfare packages designed to corrupt and destroy. Foster opened a channel to every ship in Brone's fleet. Her face appeared on their screens, cold and calm. "This is Admiral Grace Foster of the United Earth Defense Force. You were given 6 hours. You have 30 minutes remaining. Release our civilians and withdraw immediately. This is your final warning." War Chief Brone looked at the human ships on his scanners and laughed again. 12 ships against 20. "Your mathematics are as poor as your judgment, human." He cut the transmission and ordered his fleet to attack positions. Foster turned to her weapons officer. "All ships weapons free. Remember your training. Fight like the species we are. No mercy, no hesitation, no surrender. Show them what humanity learned in 10,000 years of warfare. Show them why we nearly destroyed ourselves. Show them the honey badger." The first human missile launched 3 seconds later. It was crude by galactic standards. Simple chemical propulsion pushing a dense uranium core to a fraction of light speed. Brone's point defense systems should have destroyed it easily. They never got the chance. The missile's warhead detonated early, releasing an electromagnetic pulse that fried every electronic system within 20 kilometers. Brone's flagship went dark. Emergency systems struggled to activate. In that window of darkness, a second wave of human weapons struck home. These were even more primitive. Solid chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. No guidance systems, no complex technology, just mass and velocity, physics at its most brutal. The first kinetic round punched through Brone's shields like they weren't there, and carved a hole through 3 decks. The second hit the engine section. The third struck the bridge. War Chief Brone died never understanding what killed him. His last thought was simple confusion. How could primitives do this? All across his fleet, other captains were learning the same terrible lesson. The humans fought dirty. They used weapons that shouldn't work, tactics that violated every civilized rule of engagement. They rammed ships when they ran out of ammunition. They broadcast viruses that infected navigation systems. They mined space with nuclear devices set to detonate on proximity. And they did all of it with a cold, calculated brutality that spoke of species-long experience in the art of war. High Chancellor Krell received the first casualty reports and felt his blood run cold. In 30 minutes, humanity had destroyed or disabled 15 of Brone's 20 ships. The New Dawn's civilians were already being evacuated by human rescue craft, and Admiral Foster was broadcasting a new message to the entire Galactic Council. "We asked nicely. We sent diplomats. We followed your laws. You mocked our children and attacked our families. This is what happens when you wake the honey badger. Next time we won't bother with warnings." General Richard Pike paced in the secure bunker beneath Geneva, watching multiple holographic displays showing the aftermath of the New Dawn rescue. Wreckage from Brone's fleet drifted in space, glowing with residual radiation. Human ships were already jumping back to Earth space, their mission complete. 4,000 civilians saved, 15 alien warships destroyed, 0 human casualties. Director Lang stood beside him, arms crossed. "The Council is calling emergency sessions. 3 species have already filed formal complaints. High Chancellor Krell is demanding we turn over Admiral Foster for war crimes." "War crimes?" Pike's voice dripped with contempt. "They attacked a civilian vessel and we're the criminals? What fantasy world do these aliens live in? One where they've never faced real opposition," President Ochoa said, entering the command center. Her face was drawn, tired. She had been in continuous meetings for 18 hours since authorizing Operation Honey Badger. For 1,000 years, galactic civilization has been peaceful because everyone agreed to limit their weapons. They fight with energy shields and directed particle beams, civilized warfare with civilized rules. And we just showed them what uncivilized warfare looks like, Lang finished. The question is, what happens next? Ochoa pulled up a star chart. Red markers indicated known council military positions. There were hundreds of them. Scholar Miv sent us a private communication. The insectoid has been analyzing our response. Miv believes the council will escalate. They can't afford to look weak, not after Brone's humiliation. If they back down now, every minor species in the galaxy will start questioning council authority. Pike studied the markers. How many ships can they mobilize? Conservative estimate? 800 capital ships. Maybe more if they call in their reserve fleets. Lang pulled up another display. We have 200 warships total. Even with our tactical advantages, those numbers are problematic. Numbers are always problematic when you're fighting a conventional war, Pike said quietly. But we're not fighting a conventional war. We never were. President Ochoa looked at him sharply. Explain. Pike pulled up Earth's military history files focusing on conflicts from the 20th and 21st centuries. Humanity learned something important in our bloodiest wars. You don't win by fighting fair. You win by fighting smart. The Council expects a traditional engagement. Fleet versus fleet, territory versus territory. They'll try to bring overwhelming force to bear, crush us quickly, make an example of Earth. And, Ochoa prompted, and we don't give them that battle. We go guerrilla. We hit supply lines. We target infrastructure. We make every victory they achieve cost more than it's worth. We make them afraid to send ships anywhere because they don't know where we'll strike next. Lang nodded slowly. Asymmetric warfare. The weak defeating the strong through attrition and terror. We're not weak, Pike corrected. We're outnumbered. There's a difference. And we have advantages they don't understand yet. We know where their homeworlds are. We've been mapping their territories for 5 years. They assumed we were just curious newcomers, eager to learn about our galactic neighbors. They never realized we were gathering intelligence. Ochoa sat down heavily. You're talking about targeting civilian infrastructure. Maybe even threatening their populations. I'm talking about making sure they understand the cost of threatening ours, Pike said firmly. We don't have to actually attack their civilians. We just have to make them believe we could. We have to make them more afraid of us than they are ashamed of backing down. The president closed her eyes. This was the nightmare scenario every human leader had feared since making contact with alien life. A war Earth couldn't win through strength alone. A war that required embracing the darkest parts of human nature. The honey badger, she said softly. Ma'am? Lang asked. That's what Admiral Foster called the operation. I didn't understand the reference until now. Ochoa opened her eyes. The honey badger is a small animal from Earth. Weighs maybe 30 pounds. But it's notorious for fighting animals 10 times its size. Lions, hyenas, even Cape buffalo. It doesn't win through strength. It wins through sheer vicious refusal to give up. It goes for the eyes, the throat, the soft spots. It makes the fight so costly that larger predators learn to leave it alone. That's us now, Pike said. We're the honey badger in a galaxy full of lions. And we need to make sure every single one of them learns to leave us alone. Back on the council station, High Chancellor Krell convened an emergency military session. Representatives from 12 major species gathered, all of them furious about humanity's attack on Brone's fleet. Admiral Kess of the Aquarian Navy spoke first, his water-filled containment suit bubbling with agitation. The humans must be punished. They violated every rule of civilized warfare. They used prohibited weapons, targeted command vessels, showed no restraint. They saved their civilians, Scholar Miv interjected quietly. That was their stated objective. They achieved it and withdrew. If anything, they showed remarkable restraint by not destroying Brone's entire fleet. Restraint? Krell's feathers puffed with rage. They killed a sitting member of this council. War Chief Brone was a decorated officer, a hero to his people. And these primitive apes murdered him with their barbaric weapons. Brone threatened 4,000 human civilians. Miv countered. He initiated hostilities. The humans responded proportionally. Proportionally? Admiral Kess laughed bitterly. 15 ships destroyed for one act of inspection? That's proportion. It is when the inspection was cover for piracy, Miv said flatly. I've reviewed the tactical data. Brone's boarding teams were equipped with seizure gear, not inspection equipment. He intended to take that colony ship as a prize. The humans knew it. That's why they responded with overwhelming force. The chamber fell silent. Krell shifted uncomfortably. The truth was, Brone had exceeded his authorization. The war chief had seen an opportunity for personal gain and taken it. But admitting that would weaken the council's position. Irrelevant, Krell said finally. The humans attacked Council forces. They must face consequences. I propose we mobilize our combined fleets. A show of force to remind Earth of its place. The vote was unanimous. Every species representative agreed. Only Scholar Miv abstained. Compound eyes fixed on the star charts showing Earth's location. The insectoid had been studying human military history for 3 days straight now. What Miv had learned terrified him in ways the others couldn't understand. These humans had spent 10,000 years fighting each other. They had developed weapons capable of sterilizing their entire planet multiple times over. They had created biological agents that could wipe out ecosystems, chemical weapons that made death a mercy, and nuclear arsenals that could crack continents, and they had chosen to limit those weapons. Not because they couldn't make them, but because they had learned through bitter experience that such weapons made victory meaningless. The humans had shown restraint not from weakness, but from wisdom earned through self-inflicted horror. Now the Council was threatening to push Earth past that restraint. Miv tried one more time. High Chancellor, I strongly urge caution. The humans are not what they appear. They appear to be a minor species with delusions of strength, Krell snapped. And we will correct those delusions. Admiral Kess, mobilize the fleet. I want 800 warships ready within 2 weeks. We'll assemble near the Threshold 7 system and proceed to Earth. The humans will surrender or face annihilation. Kess saluted. As you command, High Chancellor. Miv left the chamber and returned to private quarters. The scholar sent another encrypted message to Earth, this time directly to Director Lang. It was brief. They're coming. 800 ships. 2 weeks. I'm sorry I couldn't stop this. Lang received the message and immediately forwarded it to President Ochoa and General Pike. They met again in the Geneva bunker. Pike pulled up deployment orders. 200 ships against 800. Even with our advantages, we'll need help. What kind of help? Ochoa asked. The kind that makes them question whether victory is worth the cost. Pike transmitted orders to Admiral Foster and to other commanders Earth had been training in secret. We're going to do something the Council doesn't expect. We're going to fight dirty, fight smart, and fight in ways that make them wish they'd never heard of Earth. What's the strategy? Lang asked. We start by removing their logistics, Pike explained. The Council fleet needs supply bases, fuel depots, repair facilities. They can't sustain 800 warships without infrastructure. So we destroy that infrastructure. We send small teams, covert operations. No big battles. Just systematic destruction of everything they need to wage war. Hit and run, Ochoa said. Exactly. And while we're doing that, we start broadcasting messages, not to the Council leadership, but to their populations. We tell them the truth about why this war started. We show them footage of Brone's fleet surrounding a civilian colony ship. We make their own people question whether this war is justified. Psychological warfare, Lang said. Turn their citizens against their leaders. And we prepare the final deterrent, Pike said grimly. We make sure every Council species knows that if they push us to extinction, we'll take their homeworlds with us. Mutual assured destruction. It kept Earth from nuclear war for a century. It'll work on the galactic stage, too. Ochoa stood up. Issue the orders. All covert teams are authorized for deep penetration strikes. Admiral Foster is cleared to engage targets of opportunity. And initiate Protocol Samson. If Earth falls, so does everyone who killed us. Pike and Lang both froze. Protocol Samson was the doomsday scenario, the absolute last resort. Automated weapons platforms hidden throughout Council space, each one equipped with enough destructive power to sterilize a planet. They would activate only if Earth's command structure was destroyed. A dead man's switch on a planetary scale. Are you certain, Madam President? Lang asked quietly. They want to see what humans are capable of when cornered, Ochoa replied. Let's show them. Let's show them the honey badger doesn't just fight back. It makes sure anything that kills it dies too. Captain Maria Ruiz guided the stealth ship Silent Arrow through the darkness between stars, her crew of 12 moving with practiced silence, despite the ship's cramped quarters. They had been running, dark for 6 days, their ship's signature reduced to almost nothing, passive sensors only, no active scans that might give away their position. They were ghosts, hunting in the void. Target is 3 million kilometers ahead, her navigator whispered. though whispers were unnecessary in space. Old habits from submarine service died hard. Orbital fuel depot, threshold 9 system. 23 ships currently docked or in holding pattern. Station crew estimated at 400. Ruiz studied the tactical display. Threshold 9 was a critical resupply point for the Council fleet assembling at Threshold 7. Destroy this depot and those 800 warships would have to divert to secondary facilities, adding weeks to their mobilization. Admiral Foster's orders had been clear: strike hard, strike fast, and disappear before the enemy even knew they were under attack. Weapon status? Ruiz asked. All missiles armed and ready, her weapons officer replied. Infiltration package is primed. Once we're in range, I can have it deployed in 30 seconds. The infiltration package was a human innovation that made Scholar Miv's warnings seem prophetic. It was a cyber warfare weapon disguised as a standard data packet. Once introduced into a ship's or station's network, it would spread like a virus, corrupting navigation systems, disabling safeties, and ultimately causing catastrophic failures. The Council's computer systems were sophisticated but completely unprepared for malicious code. They had no concept of cyber warfare because no civilized species used such tactics. Humanity had been using them for centuries. Begin approach vector, Ruiz ordered. Communications, prepare to deploy the package when we're at optimal range. Navigation, plot 3 different escape routes. We won't have time to think once this starts. Silent Arrow crept closer to the orbital depot. The station was massive, a gleaming structure of metal and energy fields designed to service multiple capital ships simultaneously. Fuel lines stretched between the station and docked vessels like umbilical cords. Defense platforms orbited lazily, their sensors sweeping space for threats they didn't expect to find. At 1 million kilometers, Ruiz gave the signal. A tight beam. Transmission, nearly undetectable, shot from Silent Arrow to the nearest defense platform. The infiltration package piggybacked on a standard maintenance query, the kind the defense platforms exchanged thousands of times per day. The platform's computer accepted the query, processed it, and unknowingly absorbed the human virus. Within seconds, the virus spread to every networked system in the vicinity. Alarms should have sounded immediately. Instead, the virus told those alarm systems that everything was fine. Absolutely normal. Nothing to worry about. The defense platforms reported all clear. The station's security systems showed no threats. Even the manual monitoring stations saw nothing unusual because their displays were being fed false data. Package is active, the communications officer confirmed. We have full network penetration. The virus is spreading through their entire grid. Weapons target the fuel storage tanks, Ruiz ordered. Load kinetic rounds, maximum velocity. I want those tanks ruptured but not vaporized. Fuel makes a better weapon when it's burning slowly. 6 missiles launched in rapid succession. They weren't the crude projectiles Admiral Foster had used at New Dawn. These were sophisticated weapons with one simple job: punch holes in containers filled with highly flammable fuel. The missiles struck with precision, each one tearing through the station's shields as if they weren't there. The virus had conveniently disabled shield generators 3 seconds before impact. The fuel didn't explode. It did something worse. It began venting into space, flash freezing into crystalline particles that caught fire when they contacted the station's heating elements. The result was a growing cloud of flaming debris that engulfed the entire depot. Ships still docked tried to disengage, but their navigation systems had been corrupted. 2 of them collided trying to maneuver. A third activated its engines while still connected to a fuel line and tore itself apart. Defense platforms are attempting to respond, the weapons officer reported. They're firing blind, no targeting solutions. Because we told their computers we don't exist, Ruiz said with grim satisfaction. Helm, execute escape route 2. Get us out of here before they switch to manual targeting. Silent Arrow accelerated away, still running dark, still invisible. Behind them, the Threshold 9 depot burned. 400 Council personnel would be rescued by nearby ships, but the depot itself was a total loss. 23 ships damaged or destroyed. Most importantly, the fuel reserves that would have supplied the Council's warfleet were now glittering ice crystals drifting through space. This scene repeated itself across Council territory. 12 human covert teams struck simultaneously at critical infrastructure targets. Supply convoys disappeared. Communication relays went offline. Automated defense satellites started attacking. Friendly ships, their identification systems corrupted by human cyber weapons. The Council's military infrastructure, built over centuries and designed for efficiency rather than security, proved frighteningly vulnerable to human sabotage. Admiral Kess reviewed the damage reports in his command center, his containment suit clouding with agitation. How is this possible? We have the largest, most sophisticated military in the galaxy. How are these primitives doing this to us? His intelligence officer, a crystalline being whose thoughts processed data at incredible speeds, provided the answer. They're not fighting us, Admiral. They're fighting our systems. Every attack has been against infrastructure, not warships. They're using cyber warfare, information warfare, psychological warfare. These are tactics we haven't faced in 1,000 years. Then we adapt, Kess insisted. We increase security, we improve our protocols, we can't adapt that quickly, the intelligence officer interrupted. Admiral, these humans have been fighting each other with these tactics for centuries. They have institutional knowledge, training programs, entire military doctrines built around unconventional warfare. We're starting from scratch while they're executing masterfully. High Chancellor Krell called an emergency council session. The chamber was half empty, many representatives unable to attend because their ships were stranded without fuel, or their communication systems had been compromised. Those who did attend looked shaken. Report our losses, Krell demanded. Admiral Kess stood reluctantly. As of this morning, we've lost 17 supply depots, 36 communication relays, and 48 automated defense platforms. 312 ships are stranded awaiting fuel resupply. 270 ships have been damaged by corrupted navigation systems, including 12 that collided with each other. Our mobilization timeline has been pushed back by at least 6 weeks. Casualties? Someone asked. Remarkably low, Kess admitted. The humans seem to be targeting infrastructure, not personnel. When our people are at risk, they receive warnings to evacuate. It's almost as if the humans are trying to minimize deaths while maximizing damage. That makes no sense, Krell protested. If they're trying to defeat us, why show mercy? Scholar Miv spoke from the back of the chamber. Because they're not trying to defeat us, High Chancellor. They're trying to teach us a lesson. They're demonstrating that they could kill us all if they wanted to, but they're choosing not to. It's a message. Stop threatening our civilians, or next time we won't be so careful. I refuse to be intimidated by terrorist tactics, Krell declared. But his voice lacked its usual confidence. The truth was, the humans had accomplished in 1 week what should have been impossible. They had crippled the Council's military mobilization without fighting a single major battle. And the psychological impact was even worse than the physical damage. Every Council member now knew that their defenses, their technology, their assumed superiority, meant nothing against an enemy willing to fight dirty. Admiral Foster watched the reports from her flagship, now positioned in a system the Council didn't know humans had even explored. General Pike had transmitted new orders. Phase 1 of Operation Honey Badger had succeeded beyond expectations. The Council's war fleet was stalled, their infrastructure crippled, their confidence shaken. Now came Phase 2. Make them understand what they were really facing. Communications, I want a message broadcast on all Council frequencies, Foster ordered. Text and audio impossible to ignore or block. Ready, Admiral? Foster looked directly at the camera, her gray hair and lined face conveying decades of military experience. I am Admiral Grace Foster of the United Earth Defense Force. For 1 week, my forces have demonstrated what human warfare looks like when we're being polite. We've attacked your infrastructure, not your people. We've crippled your military without killing your civilians. We've shown restraint even while you were preparing to attack our homeworld. This message is to make sure you understand something critical. This is us being nice. We are capable of so much worse. Our history is filled with weapons we choose not to use because we learned how terrible they are. Chemical weapons that dissolve lungs, biological agents that spread like wildfire, nuclear devices that turn cities to ash, artificial intelligence weapons that kill without mercy or hesitation. We have all of these things and more. We don't use them because we know where that path leads, But if you force us to fight for our survival, if you threaten Earth itself, then we will use every weapon we have. Every single one. You attacked one civilian ship and we destroyed 15 warships in response. Imagine what we'll do if you attack our homeworld. We gave you fair warning. We asked nicely. We tried diplomacy. You laughed at our children and threatened our families. This is your second warning. There won't be a third. The message played on every council ship, every station, every planet in their network. It couldn't be stopped or filtered because human cyber warfare teams had already infiltrated their communication grids. And with the message came video footage. Nuclear weapons tests from Earth's 20th century. Mushroom clouds rising over test sites. Chemical weapon demonstrations showing instantaneous death. Biological warfare simulations depicting pandemic scenarios. Railgun tests where kinetic projectiles carved through mountains. The galaxy watched and understood. Humanity wasn't just dangerous because of what they had done. They were terrifying because of what they hadn't done yet. The honey badger had shown its teeth. Now everyone knew those teeth could tear apart entire worlds if provoked. High Chancellor Krell watched Admiral Foster's message for the 7th time, his feathers flat against his body in a display of distress he couldn't control. Around him, his private council of advisors sat in uncomfortable silence. The video footage of human weapons tests played again. Entire mountains vaporized. Test dummies dissolving from chemical exposure. Computer simulations showing how biological weapons could spread through populations in days. They're bluffing, Krell said, but he didn't sound convinced. No species would actually use such weapons. It's barbaric, uncivilized. Barbaric is not the same as ineffective, Admiral Kess observed from his containment suit. The humans have proven they're willing to fight in ways we can't counter. They've crippled our mobilization in 1 week using tactics we don't understand. Then we learn their tactics. Krell snapped. We adapt. We show strength, not weakness. If we back down now, every minor species in the galaxy will question council authority. We'll have rebellions, challenges, chaos. The humans must be taught their place regardless of the cost. Scholar Miv had been silent throughout the meeting, compound eyes studying data streams that others ignored. Now the insectoid spoke quietly. High Chancellor, I've been analyzing human historical patterns. Would you like to know what I've learned? Enlighten us, Krell said dismissively. Humans are exceptional at escalation, Miv explained. In their own wars, they would start with conventional weapons, then progress to more destructive methods when those failed. They have a documented pattern. Diplomatic attempts first, then economic pressure, then limited military action, then full-scale warfare, then weapons of mass destruction if pushed to desperation. We've seen them execute the first 4 stages in 2 weeks. Do you understand what comes next if we don't stop? We have 800 warships, Admiral Kess interjected. The humans have 200 at most. Even with their unconventional tactics, we have numerical superiority. Numbers mean nothing if they're willing to destroy entire planets to prevent their own destruction, Miv countered. Admiral Foster's message wasn't a bluff. It was a warning backed by demonstrable capability. The humans are telling us exactly what they'll do if we push them to extinction, and based on their history, they're completely serious. Krell stood abruptly. I will not be intimidated by primitive apes with delusions of power. Admiral Kess, proceed with the fleet mobilization. I want those 800 ships ready to move on Earth within the month. We'll overwhelm them with force they can't resist. High Chancellor, I strongly advise against this course of action. Miv protested. Your advice is noted and rejected, Krell replied coldly. This council will not bow to terrorist demands. We either maintain our authority or we admit weakness. There is no middle ground. Scholar Miv left the meeting and returned to private quarters. The insectoid sent another encrypted message to Earth, this time directly to Danny Wright. The young human had proven surprisingly insightful during his brief time at the council station. Perhaps he could convince his leaders that this situation was spiraling toward catastrophe for everyone. Danny received the message in his new office at Earth Defense Headquarters. After his return from the council station, he had been promoted from intern to strategic advisor. President Ochoa valued his first-hand experience with council thinking. He read Miv's warning and immediately brought it to Director Lang and General Pike. The scholar is right, Danny said, pulling up projections on the holographic display. Krell can't back down without looking weak. He's going to push forward even though it's suicidal. And we can't back down either because that would encourage future aggression. We're locked in an escalation spiral with no clear exit. Pike studied the projections. The Council fleet will take 3 more weeks to complete mobilization. That gives us time to prepare additional operations. We can hit them harder, destroy more infrastructure, maybe force them to delay even longer. Or we can try something different, Danny suggested. What if we bypass Krell entirely? What if we take our message directly to the Council member species? Not the governments, but the people. Lang raised an eyebrow. Explain. We've been attacking military targets, Danny said. That's effective for slowing their mobilization, but it doesn't change the political calculus. Krell and the other leaders can explain away losses as temporary setbacks. But what if we show their civilian populations what this war is really about? What if we broadcast the truth about how it started? Psychological warfare on a galactic scale, Pike mused. We make the Council's citizens question whether their leaders are justified. Exactly, Danny confirmed. We have footage of War Chief Brown's fleet surrounding the New Dawn. We have records of the Council session where they mocked us and authorized aggressive inspections. We show that to everyone. We make them understand that Earth didn't start this war. We were defending civilians from an unprovoked attack. It might work, Lang said slowly, but it also might backfire. If we attack their propaganda networks, Krell can use that to rally support against us. Nothing unites a population like an external threat. Then we don't attack their networks, Danny replied. We use our own. We broadcast from Earth on every frequency. We make it impossible to ignore. And we don't threaten anyone. We just tell the truth and ask a simple question. Is this war worth dying for? President Ochoa approved the plan within hours. Earth's communication systems, augmented by captured Council relay technology, began broadcasting a message across known space. The message was simple and devastating in its honesty. A human woman appeared on screens throughout Council territory. She was young, perhaps 25, holding a small child. My name is Rebecca Chen. This is my daughter Amy. We were passengers on the colony ship New Dawn. We were traveling to start a new life on a distant world. We weren't soldiers. We weren't a threat. We were families, children, teachers, farmers. War Chief Brown surrounded our ship with military vessels and ordered us to surrender. We complied. We powered down our engines. We prepared for inspection because we had nothing to hide. But Brown's troops weren't there to inspect. They were there to take our ship, to imprison us, to claim our vessel as a prize. We were going to be made slaves or hostages. Admiral Foster saved us. Human warships arrived and fought Brown's fleet because no one else would protect us. We didn't want war. We just wanted to be safe. Now the Galactic Council is preparing to attack Earth because we defended ourselves. They're mobilizing 800 warships to punish us for refusing to be victims. Is that what civilized species do? We're asking you, the citizens of the Council nations, to demand answers from your leaders. Why are they willing to start a war over this? What did we do that deserves extinction? The broadcast repeated every hour in multiple languages. It was accompanied by unedited footage from the New Dawn incident. Brown's fleet surrounding the colony ship, his threatening communications, the deployment of boarding teams equipped with restraints and weapons. Then footage of the Council session where Danny had been mocked, where Krell had called humans monkeys and authorized aggressive inspections. Finally, footage of Admiral Foster's rescue operation, showing human ships arriving precisely when promised, fighting only long enough to extract the civilians, then withdrawing without pursuing Brown's fleeing vessels. The reaction across Council space was immediate and divisive. On some worlds, the message was dismissed as propaganda. But on others, especially among species that had themselves been bullied by more powerful Council members, the message resonated. Public demonstrations began on 3 different Council homeworlds, citizens demanding explanations from their governments. Why were they going to war? What threat did Earth actually pose? Had the Council provoked this conflict? High Chancellor Krell tried to suppress the message, but human cyber warfare teams had made that impossible. Every time a relay was shut down, 2 more activated. Every time a filter was applied, a new frequency began broadcasting. The message spread like a virus impossible to contain, forcing every Council citizen to confront uncomfortable questions about their leadership. Admiral Kess received reports of growing dissent within his own fleet. Ship crews were questioning their orders. Some captains were requesting clarification about rules of engagement. If they attacked Earth, would they be targeting military installations or civilian populations? If humans used weapons of mass destruction in self-defense, Would the council retaliate in kind? The questions revealed growing doubt about whether this war was justified or winnable. Scholar Miv watched the crisis unfold with a mixture of relief and dread. The humans had successfully divided the council, turning what should have been a unified military action into a political nightmare. But Krell was backed into a corner now, and cornered leaders did desperate things. The High Chancellor had staked his entire authority on crushing human resistance. If he backed down, he would be removed from power. If he proceeded, he risked a war that could destroy the council itself. On Earth, General Pike assembled his command staff for a critical briefing. The psychological warfare campaign is working better than expected. 3 council species have recalled their ships from the mobilization. 2 more are demanding diplomatic negotiations before any military action. But Krell still has support from 6 major species, enough to field 400 warships. They'll be ready to move on Earth in 2 weeks. Can we win against 400 ships? Someone asked. Win? Pike considered the question carefully. In a conventional sense, no. We'll lose ships, possibly lose orbital control of Earth temporarily. But we don't need to win conventionally. We need to make the cost of victory unacceptable. That's why we're activating Protocol Samson. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what Protocol Samson meant. Automated weapons platforms hidden throughout council space, each one capable of destroying a planet. Deadman switches that would activate if Earth's command structure was destroyed. Mutual assured destruction on a galactic scale. We're telling them that if they kill us, they die too. Pike continued. Not immediately. Not in battle. But weeks or months later, when our automated systems execute their final orders. It's the ultimate deterrent. The only question is whether they'll believe we're serious. Director Lang pulled up the deployment data. 57 weapons platforms, each one hidden in deep space near a major council world. They weren't large enough to destroy planets outright, but they carried enough nuclear and kinetic weapons to render worlds uninhabitable. And they were completely autonomous. Once activated, they couldn't be recalled or disabled except by Earth command codes. If Earth fell, those platforms would wait 30 days, then execute their programming. We need to make sure every council leader knows about this, Pike said. We need them to understand that destroying Earth means destroying themselves. It's the only way to stop this war without actually fighting it. Danny Wright volunteered to deliver the message personally. He would return to the council station, request an emergency session, and present Protocol Samson as humanity's final position. It was a diplomatic suicide mission. The council might arrest him, might use him as a hostage, might simply refuse to listen, but someone had to try. President Ochoa approved his mission with clear reluctance. You're very young to be carrying the fate of our species, Danny. I was too young to be humiliated by the council, Danny replied. But that happened anyway. Maybe being young is an advantage. Maybe they'll listen because I'm not some hardened military officer or calculating politician. Maybe they'll see me as what I am. A kid who just wants this to stop before everyone dies. 2 days later, Danny arrived at the council station aboard a single unarmed shuttle. He carried no weapons, no guards, just a data chip containing full specifications for Protocol Samson. Scholar Miv met him at the docking bay, compound eyes reflecting concern and something that might have been hope. You're either very brave or very foolish, Miv said. I'm terrified, Danny admitted. But someone has to try to stop this. The alternative is genocide on both sides. The council may not listen. Then I'll make them listen, Danny replied grimly. The honey badger tried asking nicely. Now we're explaining exactly why continuing this war means everyone loses. If they still choose extinction after that, at least we tried. Danny stood before the Galactic Council chamber doors for the second time in 3 weeks. But everything had changed. Last time he had been a nervous intern carrying a petition for protected trade routes. Now he was a diplomatic envoy carrying information that could end civilizations. The doors opened and he walked through head high, hands steady. Fear was still there, coiled in his stomach. But it was accompanied by something else now. Certainty. Purpose. The knowledge that he was speaking for every human who had ever been dismissed, mocked or threatened. The chamber was packed. Every council member had attended this emergency session. They wanted to see the human who had helped orchestrate their military humiliation. Some faces showed anger, others curiosity. A few showed something that might have been respect. High Chancellor Krell sat on his elevated platform, feathers carefully arranged to project authority. but Danny could see the tension in how the avian held himself. This was a leader whose grip on power was slipping. "The Council recognizes Earth," Krell announced, his musical voice lacking its previous condescension. "We have granted this emergency session at Scholar Miv's request. You may speak, human." Danny approached the central platform. This time he didn't struggle with the height. Someone had adjusted it to human proportions. A small gesture, but it meant everything. "Thank you, High Chancellor. I'll be brief because time is critical for all of us. 3 weeks ago I stood here and asked for help protecting our civilian ships. You laughed. You called me a child. You mocked my species as primitive and insignificant. Then you authorized actions that led to War Chief Brone surrounding a colony ship with 4,000 civilians aboard. You know what happened next." "We know humans attacked Council forces," Krell interjected. "We defended our civilians," Danny corrected firmly. "Just as any species would. Just as you would if someone threatened your families. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here because this situation is spiraling toward catastrophe for everyone. Your fleet mobilization has been crippled by our covert operations. Your citizens are questioning whether this war is justified. Some of your member species have withdrawn their support, but you still have enough ships to attack Earth. And we both know you're planning to do exactly that." Admiral Kess spoke up. "Are you here to surrender? To beg for mercy?" "No," Danny said simply. "I'm here to explain why attacking Earth would be the worst mistake in galactic history. I'm here to tell you about Protocol Samson." He inserted the data chip into the chamber's computer system. Holographic displays appeared throughout the room, showing star charts marked with 57 locations. Each location was near a major council world. The displays zoomed in, revealing weapons platforms drifting in deep space, invisible to standard scans positioned at precise coordinates calculated for maximum destructive effect. "These are automated weapons platforms," Danny explained. "Each one carries enough nuclear and kinetic weapons to render a planet uninhabitable. They've been in position for 3 years, since before we even joined the Council. They're completely autonomous, controlled by quantum encrypted command systems based on Earth. They have one simple program. If Earth's command structure is destroyed, if our government falls, if we're wiped out, these platforms wait 30 days. Then they activate. Then they execute their final orders." The chamber erupted. Dozens of species representatives shouted at once. Threats, accusations, demands. Danny waited for the chaos to subside. High Chancellor Krell called for silence, but his feathers had gone completely flat. "You're threatening mutual destruction," the avian said, his voice shaking. "You're holding the entire galaxy hostage." "Yes," Danny agreed. "Just like you were planning to hold Earth hostage with overwhelming military force. The difference is our threat is defensive. We're not going to attack anyone. But if you attack us, if you destroy Earth, then 30 days later your worlds burn too. 57 major council worlds, all rendered uninhabitable within a few hours of each other. Billions of lives lost. Not because we want revenge, but because we programmed these systems to ensure our survival. If we live, you live. If we die, you die. It's that simple." "This is barbaric," someone shouted. "You're monsters." "We're survivors," Danny replied coldly. "We learned a long time ago that the only way to prevent war is to make war unwinnable for everyone. We call it mutual assured destruction. It kept Earth from nuclear war for over a century. Now it's the only thing standing between peace and genocide on a galactic scale." Scholar Miv stood, compound eyes fixed on the star charts. "The humans are telling the truth. I've analyzed the platform specifications. The technology is crude but effective. These weapons could absolutely devastate Council worlds. And the automation is sophisticated enough that we couldn't disable all platforms before at least some of them executed their programming." "How many could we disable?" Admiral Kess demanded. "Unknown," Miv replied. "The platforms are stealth, shielded, and designed to be expendable. You might destroy 40 platforms. You might destroy 50. But if even one platform completes its mission, an entire world becomes uninhabitable. Are you willing to gamble your homeworld on those odds?" Krell looked at Danny with something approaching hatred. "You planned this from the beginning. You joined the Council knowing you would threaten us." "We joined the Council hoping we wouldn't need to threaten anyone," Danny corrected. "We came in peace. We asked for cooperation. We followed your laws, and you responded with mockery and aggression. You forced this situation, High Chancellor. We're just making sure you understand the consequences." "So we're trapped," Krell said bitterly. "We can't attack Earth without destroying ourselves. But we can't ignore human aggression either. Your covert operations have cost us billions in damaged infrastructure. You've humiliated the Council, shown weakness to every minor species in the galaxy. How do we maintain order if we can't respond to such provocations? You stop treating them as provocations, Danny said. You acknowledge that Earth has legitimate security concerns. You grant us the same rights and protections you extend to major Council species. You treat us as equals instead of inferiors. He paused, letting that sink in. Or you can try to call our bluff. You can send your 400 warships to Earth. You can maybe destroy our orbital defenses, maybe even force a surrender. And then 30 days later, your worlds start dying. Every single leader in this chamber will have to explain to their people why they gambled billions of lives on a war that didn't need to happen. The chamber fell silent. Everyone was doing the same calculation, weighing the same terrible odds. Pride versus survival, authority versus extinction. Admiral Kess spoke first. If we agree to negotiate, if we grant Earth equivalent status to major Council species, what happens to those weapons platforms? They stay exactly where they are, Danny replied. They're not negotiable. They're not leverage. They're insurance. As long as Earth exists, as long as our command structure remains intact, those platforms will never activate. But they don't go away. They're permanent, just like your fleets are permanent. The difference is, our weapons only fire if you destroy us first. Your weapons can fire whenever you choose. Which one of us is really the threat? Scholar Miv addressed the Council directly. I have studied human history extensively over the past 3 weeks. I've learned something that terrifies me more than their weapons. These humans are patient. They think in generations, not years. They're willing to wait decades for their plans to mature. They joined our Council 5 years ago appearing weak and primitive. But they were mapping our territories, analyzing our systems, positioning their weapons, all while we dismissed them as insignificant. They played a game we didn't even know was happening, and they played it perfectly. Now they're offering us a choice. Accept them as equals or face mutual destruction. But here's what you need to understand. This is not a bluff. This is not a negotiating tactic. This is who they are. They will absolutely follow through if we push them to it, even knowing it means their own extinction. I've seen it in their history repeatedly. When humans face extinction, they take their enemies with them. Every single time. The insectoid's words hung in the air. Danny saw understanding dawn on face after face. They were finally seeing what Scholar Miv had tried to warn them about weeks ago. Humanity wasn't primitive. They were strategic. They weren't weak. They were patient. And they absolutely would choose mutual destruction over subjugation. High Chancellor Krell looked around the chamber, reading the room. His authority was built on strength, on the Council's ability to enforce order through superior force. But that force meant nothing against an enemy willing to die if it meant taking you with them. He had 2 choices: maintain his pride and doom his world, or accept reality and negotiate. After a long silence, he spoke. The Council will recess for deliberation. Human representative, you will wait in secure quarters while we discuss this situation. Of course, Danny said. But I want to be clear about something. Earth's fleet is positioned at predetermined coordinates throughout Council space. If I don't transmit an all-clear signal every 6 hours, Admiral Foster assumes I've been detained or harmed and begins executing contingency plans. Those plans include demonstrating Protocol Samson's effectiveness on an uninhabited world. You'll have proof that we're serious. You'll also have proof that we can reach any target we choose. I recommend you deliberate quickly. Danny was escorted to a guest suite under guard. Scholar Miv visited him there, bringing what passed for refreshments in Council space. The insectoid sat across from the young human, studying him with those compound eyes. You've gambled everything on this strategy. If the Council decides to test your resolve, if they call what they think is a bluff, then this war escalates to extinction for multiple species. I know, Danny said quietly. I haven't slept properly in 2 weeks thinking about it. But what choice did we have? Roll over and accept being prey? Let them attack our civilians without consequence? We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. They responded with violence. This was the only path left that didn't guarantee our destruction. You could have run, Miv suggested. Humanity could abandon Council space, establish colonies in unexplored regions, avoid contact with galactic civilization, and leave every other minor species to face the same treatment we faced? Danny shook his head. No. If we don't stand up to the Council, if we don't force them to treat weaker species with respect, then nothing changes. Another species will be mocked, threatened, attacked. The cycle continues, at least this way. If we fail, if this ends in mutual destruction, maybe the survivors will learn something about the cost of arrogance. Miv was silent for a moment. You sound much older than 19. I aged about 10 years in the past 3 weeks, Danny said with a tired smile. Turns out being responsible for your species' survival does that to you. The council deliberated for 18 hours. During that time, Admiral Foster transmitted a demonstration to every council world. Human ships appeared above an uninhabited planet in neutral space. One of the Protocol Samson platforms activated, launching its payload. The nuclear and kinetic weapons struck the planet's surface with devastating effect. Mushroom clouds rose into the atmosphere. Kinetic impactors carved craters hundreds of kilometers wide. Within 3 hours, the planet's surface was a radioactive wasteland, uninhabitable for thousands of years. The message was clear. This is what happens to 57 of your worlds if you destroy Earth. When Danny was finally recalled to the council chamber, the atmosphere had changed completely. High Chancellor Krell looked diminished somehow, his feathers dulled. The council has reached a decision. We will enter into formal negotiations with Earth regarding mutual security arrangements and equivalent status within galactic civilization. The fleet mobilization is suspended. All hostile actions against human vessels are prohibited pending these negotiations. In return, Earth will cease covert operations against Council infrastructure and agree to diplomatic channels for resolving future disputes. What about War Chief Brown's attack on the New Dawn? Danny asked. What about accountability for that? Brown exceeded his authority. Krell admitted, the words clearly painful. His actions were not officially sanctioned by the full council. He will be listed as deceased in combat, his dishonor recorded. The families of his victims will receive formal apologies and compensation. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was acknowledgement, which was more than Danny had expected. Earth accepts these terms as a starting point for negotiations. President Ochoa will assign a full diplomatic team to work out details. But I want to be clear, High Chancellor. Protocol Samson remains active. Those platforms stay in position. They're not negotiable. They're the guarantee that this never happens again. Understood, Krell said quietly. The Council has learned a painful lesson about underestimating species we consider inferior. Perhaps it's a lesson we needed to learn. Scholar Miv spoke up. If I may address both parties. This conflict revealed something important about galactic civilization. We've been peaceful for so long that we forgot why we became peaceful. We forgot that civilization is built on mutual respect, not power imbalances. Earth's actions, however brutal they seemed, reminded us of something crucial. Every species has the right to defend itself, and any species pushed to extinction will fight back with everything they have. The Council forgot that. We won't forget again. The negotiations took 3 months. Earth gained equivalent status to major Council species, including votes on military decisions, protected trade routes, and representation on the Security Council. In return, humans agreed to share some technological innovations, particularly in cybersecurity, to help other species defend against the tactics Earth had used so effectively. Protocol Samson remained classified. But every Council leader knew those platforms were out there, watching, waiting, insurance against future aggression. Danny Wright became Earth's permanent representative to the Council at age 19. He never quite got used to the irony of that. The kid they had mocked and dismissed was now someone they had to take seriously. But he wore the responsibility well, advocating not just for Earth but for all minor species who might face similar treatment. 1 year after the crisis, Ambassador Trill, a representative from a small neutral species, approached Danny after a council session. Human representative, I wanted to thank you. Since your confrontation with High Chancellor Krell, 3 other minor species have successfully negotiated better terms with the Council. Your example showed us that we don't have to accept being dismissed. We can demand respect, you always could, Danny replied. You just needed someone to demonstrate it first. That's all we did. We showed that being small doesn't mean being weak. Being new doesn't mean being insignificant. And being outnumbered doesn't mean being helpless. The other species are calling you something, Trill said with amusement. They call you the honey badger ambassador. They say you're small but fierce, and anyone who threatens you learns to regret it. Danny laughed. I've been called worse things. At least honey badgers are survivors. He looked around the council chamber, at representatives from dozens of species, all of them now treating Earth with respect born from a very specific kind of fear. Not fear of Earth's weapons alone, but fear of human determination. Fear of a species that would absolutely choose mutual destruction over submission. Fear of the honey badger. High Chancellor Krell approached, an unusual gesture from someone who typically remained aloof. Representative Wright, I wanted to speak with you privately if possible. They moved to a quiet corner of the chamber. Krell's feathers rippled with discomfort. I owe you an apology. When you first came to this council, I treated you with contempt. I dismissed your concerns, mocked your youth, and authorized actions that nearly led to war. I did this because I believed humans were inferior, primitives who needed to be taught their place. I was wrong. Profoundly, dangerously wrong. You weren't just wrong about humans, Danny said. You were wrong about power. You thought it came from having the biggest fleet, the most advanced technology, the longest history, but real power comes from being willing to do what others won't. It comes from commitment that goes beyond rational calculation. Humanity was willing to burn down the galaxy rather than be slaves. That commitment scared you more than our weapons ever could. Yes, Krell admitted, and that terrifies me. Because if humans are willing to go that far to defend themselves, what else might you be willing to do? Danny smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That's the question that keeps you awake at night, isn't it? What are these humans capable of? What lines will they cross? What weapons do they have that they haven't shown yet? Here's the truth, High Chancellor. You'll never know. We'll never tell you everything. We'll always keep some secrets, some capabilities hidden, because that uncertainty is part of our defense. You'll always wonder if attacking Earth is worth the risk, and that wondering will keep you peaceful. So humanity's strategy is permanent intimidation? Humanity's strategy is survival, Danny corrected. Everything else is just tactics. We didn't want to intimidate the Council. We wanted to join galactic civilization as partners. You made that impossible by treating us as inferiors. So we showed you what happens when you back a human into a corner. We showed you the honey badger. Now you know. Now everyone knows. And maybe that knowledge will prevent the next war before it starts. Krell was silent for a long moment. Then he did something Danny never expected. The High Chancellor bowed, a gesture of respect in avian culture. Thank you for teaching us this lesson without destroying us. You could have. Your protocol Samson could have executed regardless of negotiations. You showed mercy when you had every reason not to. That speaks to something important about humanity. You're not just dangerous. You're wise enough to know when not to use that danger. Danny accepted the bow with a nod. We learned that wisdom through terrible mistakes. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. That's why we understand the cost of warfare better than species who've been peaceful for millennia. We know what it's like to stand on the edge of extinction and choose to step back. We're hoping the galaxy never has to learn that lesson the way we did. Later that day, Danny sat in his quarters and recorded a message to President Ochoa. Madam President, the negotiations are complete. Earth has achieved equivalent status in the Galactic Council. Our trade routes are protected. Our colonies are secure. Protocol Samson remains active but classified. The Council has learned to respect us, though that respect is built on fear as much as admiration. I don't know if that's the outcome we wanted, but it's the outcome we needed. Humanity is safe. For now. He paused, considering his next words carefully. But I want to go on record with something. We won this confrontation because we were willing to threaten mutual destruction. We were willing to kill billions to ensure our own survival. That worked. It kept us alive. But we need to remember what we almost did. We need to remember how close we came to actually executing Protocol Samson. Because next time, if there is a next time, we might not be able to step back from that edge. We need to be as afraid of ourselves as the Council is afraid of us. That's the only way we stay human. On Earth, Admiral Foster deactivated the combat readiness protocols but kept First Fleet at high alert. The ships that had been built in secret were now common knowledge throughout the galaxy. There was no point hiding them anymore. Instead, they became a visible reminder of human capability. Every Council species knew that Earth had 200 warships equipped with weapons that violated every civilized convention. And they knew those ships could be mobilized in days if humanity felt threatened again. General Pike reviewed the final statistics from Operation Honey Badger. 17 Council supply depots destroyed, 36 communication relays disabled, 48 defense platforms corrupted, 15 enemy warships destroyed in the New Dawn rescue, 0 enemy worlds attacked despite having the capability to devastate 57 of them. He sent a message to all human military personnel. We proved ourselves in this conflict not by how much damage we could do, but by how much damage we chose not to do. Remember that. We're not monsters. We're protectors. We use overwhelming force only when necessary, and we show mercy whenever possible. That's what separates us from those who would prey on the weak. Scholar Miv published a comprehensive analysis of the conflict that became required reading in every council military academy. The document was titled The Honey Badger Principle: Why Underestimating Desperate Species Leads to Catastrophic Outcomes. It detailed every mistake the council had made, every warning sign they had ignored, every assumption that had proven false. The final paragraph became famous throughout galactic civilization. Humanity taught us that technological superiority means nothing against strategic creativity, that numerical advantage is worthless against asymmetric warfare, and that ancient wisdom is no match for desperate innovation. But most importantly, they taught us that small, seemingly weak species can be the most dangerous of all when pushed to extinction, because they have nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Never forget the honey badger. Never underestimate those who fight for survival. 2 years after the crisis, a new species called the Valora joined the Galactic Council. They were small, technologically primitive by council standards, and nervous about joining such an advanced civilization. Their representative, a young female named Tessa, stood at the same speaking platform where Danny had once struggled to be heard. She presented her species' petition for protected exploration rights in a region of space claimed by a more powerful council member. Before anyone could respond, Danny stood up. The council recognizes Earth. I want to speak in support of the Valora petition. They're asking for something reasonable. They're following proper procedures, and they deserve to be heard with respect, not dismissed because they're new or small or technologically behind more established species. He looked directly at High Chancellor Krell. We all remember what happens when the council ignores legitimate concerns from minor species. I recommend we avoid repeating that lesson. The chamber fell silent. Krell ruffled his feathers, a gesture Danny now recognized as resignation. Earth's point is noted. The council will give the Valora petition full consideration and respond within the standard time frame with appropriate respect. He looked at Tessa. Welcome to the Galactic Council, representative. We hope your experience here will be more pleasant than Earth's initial reception. After the session, Tessa approached Danny, her eyes wide with gratitude and awe. Thank you, Ambassador Wright. I've heard stories about you, about how Earth fought back when the Council tried to intimidate you. I was so scared coming here, but knowing you're here, knowing someone will stand up for smaller species, that helps. Danny smiled warmly. You shouldn't need me to stand up for you. The Council should treat every species with respect regardless of size or strength. But until they learn that lesson completely, Earth will be here. We'll speak for those who aren't being heard. We'll challenge those who abuse their power. That's our role now. We're not just members of the Council. We're the reminder of what happens when the strong prey on the weak. The honey badger, Tessa said softly. The honey badger, Danny confirmed. Small, stubborn, and absolutely unwilling to back down when threatened. That's humanity. And now that's what we stand for in this council. Fair treatment for all species regardless of power level. It's not the role we wanted when we joined galactic civilization, but it's the role we earned. That evening, Danny sent his regular report to Earth. He included a note at the end. The council is changing. Slowly but noticeably. Smaller species are speaking up more. Larger species are listening more carefully. The rules are being applied more fairly. It's not perfect. We still have Protocol Samson active because we can't fully trust that the old attitudes won't resurface. But progress is happening. The galaxy is learning that might doesn't make right, that every species deserves respect, and that threatening the weak can awaken dangers you never imagined. The honey badger changed galactic civilization. Now we just have to make sure those changes stick. On Earth, President Ochoa read Danny's report and smiled. The young intern who had been sent to the council by accident, who had been mocked and dismissed, who had stood alone representing humanity, while more experienced diplomats recovered from illness. That young man had become exactly what Earth needed. Not a warrior, though he had helped orchestrate a successful military campaign. Not a politician, though he now wielded considerable political influence. He had become something more important, a symbol, a reminder that being underestimated was sometimes the greatest advantage of all. She composed a response to Danny, You've done well, Ambassador. You took Earth's greatest weakness, our perceived inferiority, and turned it into our greatest strength. The galaxy feared what they didn't understand about us, and you made sure they never fully understood. Keep that mystery alive. Keep that edge sharp. And keep reminding them that the honey badger is small, but the honey badger never loses a fight it can't walk away from, because it makes sure there's nothing left to fight. The story of humanity's confrontation with the Galactic Council became legend throughout civilized space. Children of dozens of species learned about the young human ambassador, who faced down an entire civilization. Military academies studied Operation Honey Badger as the definitive example of asymmetric warfare. Diplomatic schools analyzed Danny's negotiating tactics as masterful examples of leveraging weakness into strength. And on every council world, whenever someone suggested bullying a smaller species or dismissing a weaker civilization, someone else would inevitably ask the question that stopped such talk immediately. Do you really want to find out if they're another honey badger? Because that was humanity's ultimate victory, not the battles they won, not the weapons they deployed, not even the respect they eventually earned. Their ultimate victory was teaching the galaxy a lesson that would echo for generations. Never mock the children of a species you don't understand. Never threaten civilians of a civilization you've underestimated. And never ever back a human into a corner and assume they'll surrender quietly. Because humans don't surrender, they fight. And they make sure everyone remembers why you should have left them alone. The honey badger had gone to war, and the galaxy would never forget.